All right, and there we are. We are live. It's the regular meeting of RFM. It's currently Omar and myself, and it's the February the 27th of 2019. We're about to debug the Docker container. Omar, you got in touch and said you had troubles to install it. And Omar is rebuilding the Docker image. In general, I would advise everyone who has troubles with caching or cache invalidation, use Docker compose down -v. That will remove network volumes and everything, and then rebuild all the images with Docker compose up -- build. And that's what we did. And so far it's looking promising. If you not use -- build, it might use a previously built image, which you have in your registry lying around. Maybe that was a broken one, who knows? Removing the volumes also ensures that all the node modules get removed and they have to be reinstalled, which takes some time, but afterwards you will have a fresh working environment again.
Okay.
Installing Nocogear always takes some time because they have native extensions. So.
Okay.
Shall we do something in the meantime?
Sure, if you got ideas.
What did you say?
Sure, why not?
All right. Okay, I'll share my screen. I can tell you what we did last time. The last time there was Daniel. Together with Daniel, we were working on the front end. And in particular, we were working on the research search broadcast button behavior.
Research search button, okay.
Right, so one of the worst, or the parts of the application with the worst code is the find broadcast page. And we were basically refactoring it and also like making it better, improving it. And I'm updating the let's rebase on the current master, install the dependencies, and that way we can also double check the current dependencies. I will also run bundler. So what I did was I said git rebase origin/master after updating my current remote branches. Have you ever done this before? Git fetch origin, git rebase origin master?
Yes, I've done them.
All right, then you know what it does. Let's start the server here. What's going on here? HTTP error, interesting. You can still hear me. It's not my internet connection, right?
No, probably not. But it's the repo up.
Ruby gems, yeah, maybe, okay. But I mean, the gems are there. Right, database, true. System control start.
Okay, it looks like it worked.
Nice. Yeah. Oh no, front-end exited with code 1. Node modules appears empty. You may need to run npm install. Yeah, so if you remove the volumes now,
yes,
it will also remove the node modules, and you don't have to rebuild the images anymore. You could just say Docker compose up. So the image will be reused, but the volumes will be empty.
Okay.
Also, the backend exited with code 1. Like, why did the backend exit with code 1?
It has a...
Oh, cannot run load such file, bundler setup.
It's the same error.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, well.
Strange.
Yes, it is. But the front-end problem, I don't think that's an issue. I think you just need to run npm install, so that should be...
Yeah, sometimes it can be confusing because you in the Docker container you sometimes run yarn install and nothing happens. That is because if you say docker compose run and then --rm, this will create another container.
Yes.
You will run the npm install, but that will not change the image. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to start it, and then you have to exec it. So if you can say exec, then you will end up in the container that's already running. So that's good.
Yes.
That's what you want. Another solution is indeed then you could debug the Docker image. So when Docker builds the image, it's telling you the layers and the hashes of the layers. Like that's the ID of the layer, and you can say Docker run and then -rm -it. So for interactive, and then it gave it the hash. Have you ever did that before?
No, not that kind of stuff. No, that sounds a bit advanced, but yeah.
Yeah, interested in it?
I could give it a try, sure.
So you have to scroll up your terminal a little bit. Maybe you want to make it a little bit larger so we can see.
Yeah. Are there any keyboard shortcuts to make the terminal take the whole screen?
I don't know. You can just use a different terminal, like not use the Visual Studio Code terminal, but a separate terminal.
This is Visual Studio.
I know, and you can open another terminal if you want.
Like that. Right.
So if you scroll up to the point where you have the builds, then you see sometimes running in and then a strange looking ID.
Yeah.
And you can copy that and you can go back to that state. So for example, you could go into the front end container and go to the step where just before you're installing the dependencies. For example, yeah, that one's below. Oh no, that's step 3 out of 10. Yeah, maybe a little bit further down.
Yes, here.
That's run npm install. Maybe the one after npm install. So we expect the node modules to be there.
Okay, so this.
Like, what is step 9 from 10?
Okay, here.
Yeah, and then you can copy that. And then you say docker run. You just say docker run. Oh, yeah, stop that first.
Yeah.
And then run, I think before the hash, you have to put in rm and it. Again, exactly. I think this is it. Maybe there's one more hyphen to rm, but we see. If you type it in now, you will get an error. Yeah, there we go. So probably what, 2 hyphens.
Yep.
Oh, and you have to specify what you want to run in the container. So after the whole command, you need to put in sh. That would be shell or bash, depending what you want to do.
I think I use
It
bash.
has shell and it has bash. Yeah, and you can also just use bash. It will always use the one that's on path.
All right.
Yeah, remove the / too. So that's not gonna work, but that's gonna work. Yeah. So far, yeah. There we go. So now you're in bash and you can say ls and, for example, check node modules. And it's not empty.
No. It's a bit strange considering that it gave an error for.
It is absolutely strange. So what happens? So why is the Docker container, the npm image, empty if you use Docker Compose up? So now we debug that the image, the Docker container image, does have the dependencies for the front end. But if you use Docker Compose, then something happens, and then this folder appears to be empty. So you can now exit this. So we want to debug further. You exit this container, and then you run Docker Compose, and this time you cannot run exec because there's nothing running at the moment. What you can do is you just say run, and then --rm, and then you say frontend, and then bash, for example. In order to double check that the node modules folder now is empty. So that's interesting. So apparently you're not in the frontend folder. How comes that?
Oh, that I'm in the my app folder.
Yeah, why?
Well, I had some problems with the front end container as well. It's not just the back end.
Like, why are you in my app at all? Like, what the heck? Like, what did we merge in? Like, I was double checking the pull request. Maybe we merged something unintentional. Let me check.
No. This is my work. This is my setup. Okay. Can I get this?
So can you make a git status and tell me how much and what exactly you changed?
Wait, let me.
I would always debug with comparing a working state. Oh yeah, okay. So there's a lot that you changed.
Yes.
So what you do is you can I would, for example, create a branch and commit and switch between the master, the state of the origin master, and the commit that you have. So I was expecting clean working directory. Having so many changes in there, that makes it very obvious that it's somehow related to your changes. So I didn't have this in mind. I thought you had a fresh, clean state, but yeah. So what you can do to debug it, you basically undo all these changes by committing it and switching to the master branch. So switching back to the master branch, then running the Docker Compose app and see what happens, and then compare to the error in your branch. So if your branch is throwing the error and master branch is not, then this is the proof. It has something to do with these local changes. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but I had problems with the master branch.
What exactly?
The one that I checked out from. Wait, what if I just create a?
What are you doing?
I don't think that the error is because of my changes, because I made all those changes to make the front end work. Because the front end container was also crashing. And I managed to make it work by making like these changes here. It seems that if I did, if I used as the working direct,
yeah. So copy and the commands in Docker are copying things to the local working directory. So the dot folder is the local working directory. If you'll change it on line 3, everything on line 6, 7, well, you specify it, you put it to my app, but the dot will be the working directory. You could also use copy package.json to ./package.json. That would be one way. You can also do it 6 and 7 on one line. That's also possible.
Yes.
If you want to improve the Docker image, you should definitely check out the branch. Let me see. So there's a pull request. This pull request here, I'll put it in this chat. Not everything is working so far, but most of it is working. So you can run, for example, the back and the front end. That should be working. I don't know what about the tests. I think the tests were not working, but at least you can run the application. And put it in the pull request to the chat. And in that pull request, we had a lot of optimizations to the Docker images already, like reducing the size. Unfortunately, the front-end image apparently needs to be that big because there's a dependency to Chrome.
Really?
Yeah, for testing.
Okay. Sounds funny. Anyway, this is when you wondered why I used this my app directory instead of front end. It has to do with this question here in Stack Overflow. It's something with the container that it has a default directory of my app instead of front end. So using the hints in that answer helped me make the front end work.
I see. In that case, I would always advise to check out the Docker image. So the image of Dan Lin for Ember has a GitHub repository, and you can check out the Docker image of it. So I'm now searching for. Let me share my screen again. So now so you gave me this link here, right?
Yes.
And what you can do is you just search for Dan Lin Ember Docker.
Okay.
And that will bring you to the Docker image, and then you can see what are the defaults and how do I have to change the Docker file if I start from it. So when I say from Dan Lin something, Dan Lin version XY, then I can see, okay, what are the defaults so far? And there you have work directory my app.
Okay.
And if you don't want that, then you can change the working directory, I guess. Although I don't think that this would make any difference to the fact that the rest of it is already there. So you would have to move this folder first, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so here you can see it's installing Chrome for testing. That's the reason why. And that's also the reason why this image is so large. I thought we could just install Node Alpine, but then the testing doesn't work anymore, which is unfortunate.
Oh.
So I would say you don't really have to change into the my app repository working directory. I mean, what is this doing? It's basically it's just installing dependencies here, right? So apt-get, nothing happens to the working directory in my app. I think I changed the working directory in this branch here. Work. Yeah, there we go. So there's work. Oh no, that was before. So what I do sometimes is I use a folder that has something similar that tells me what image I am in. So when I SSH into it or run bash in there, I can see from the prompt that I'm currently not on my host system, but in an image. It's maybe a little bit strange to name it like that, but it helps me at least.
Yeah.
So here you can see how I can copy it. I don't really have to specify /full stack. So I can, for example, say dot, and this will go into this default working directory. Yeah, but do we have more work there? So there's Rails root. Rails root is slash backend. Interesting. And there is for front end work here Amber root. And Amber root is slash front end. Same. Yeah. So maybe you want to check out this pull request and maybe also work further on it. Do you want me to check out this branch and have a look how much there's currently working? Would you be interested in working, like continuing on this branch?
I don't know. Did you get the backend container to work in your branch?
Yes.
Okay, maybe then I could have a look.
So there is a trick which I find quite convenient. So there's I learned from another project one. Okay, let's do the Docker. Let's go full Docker in this meeting.
All right.
My branch is ahead of shrink Docker image size by 5 commits. That's interesting. Yeah. So let me tell you about this commit here. This is interesting. So when you have a front end and a back end, and you want to Dockerize it, you usually have a problem because the server-side rendered front end can talk to the back end through a URL backend, but it's this name backend is not available on the host system. There it is. It would be localhost, right? Does it make sense?
Yes.
And I added on this branch one solution to it. That is, you have if you are in the environment staging production, then this URL and this URL is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, backend URL, but you don't have. Yeah, okay. So what I did here is I basically proxied. Yeah, there we go. This is what I wanted to show. So
Okay.
you can have an Express server that's running the Ember.js app for production. And what you can do is you just rewrite everything that's starting with /API, and you proxy it like on the server side rendered front end. You proxy it to the backend, and that helps you to get rid of cores. Right? So you have just one exposed application. You don't need to expose the backend anymore. The backend is like exposed through the front end. You basically have a tunnel. So when you send something to the front end and it goes to /API, it will go to the backend.
Yep.
It has a couple of advantages. So for Docker, it makes things way easier because you don't have different URLs on your host system and in the Docker container.
Yes.
You don't need cores set up on the backend anymore because it's just the front end. That's it.
Yes.
What else is there? Yeah, you don't need all the dependencies. That's also super awesome.
I
So
agree.
currently I have these commits on my machine right now, and I should make it available by pushing it. What is the current diff between? What am I on? Shrink Docker image size. So diff origin shrink and head. So what did I do? So we have different deploy scripts. Yeah. I see a lot of unrelated changes. So for example, the changes to the deploy script should be another
Yeah.
PR, I would say.
Yeah, it
Would it
seems
help?
like you've done a lot something with the C with the continuous integration as well.
Yeah. Does it help if I just push it and we split it into in different pull requests later on? Maybe that was the reason why I didn't push it. So I don't want to make this pull request really huge.
Well, yeah, you can push it, but maybe look, uh, I don't think I will work on this for a few days, so you can make a clean split of those of the code if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think this year this is definitely relevant. We should have this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the reason here I can see why I was changing the deployment, because I changed this the server-side Express server.
Yep.
And before we had this notifier thing here, which I guess will be obsolete if we no, I can't see it. Why? Oh yeah, yeah. This is going to be obsolete once we execute a command on the front end from Travis. So I think this is just restarting the application, and
Yep.
we will do it manually later on. So we don't need this file system notifier anymore. Okay. Now I understand why I was doing it. Okay, and this is it. I think I will just push it.
All right.
Look like update README proxy request to backend. Remove file system notifiers if we restart the node server in each deployment. If it's notifier are obsolete, yes. That's what I got from looking at the diff. Change deployment, restart frontend manually. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So now I'll push it, and you can then try to run the container in your machine. Docker compose up. Would that help? Or
I can see if it helps.
I think now we also have different build stages. So what I usually do is I have one Docker Compose YAML as a base.
Yeah.
And then for development, I have this build stage build and test, which includes the development dependencies. But for staging, for example, we have so it's in general, the base image specifies production. That is the image without development dependencies. And for development, we are specifying build and test. Test the development dependencies. Does it make sense?
Okay. Yes. Are you going to document this?
Yes, I think it should be documented already. Okay. So in the README of this branch, at least, we don't have this documented because by default, Docker Compose is reading two files. That is Docker Compose YAML and Docker Compose override. That's like the default.
All right.
So if you don't do anything, you will end up with the build and test staging. Build stage. But if you specify these two files explicitly, then you will end up with the production image. So the README is not specifying anything because it's expecting you to be in development environment or you're testing development environment. But here we go. For full stack testing, use the provided Docker Compose override. And I have in the README the link, the example use case from the documentation.
Okay.
Nice. So here you can see what is the documentation of Docker Compose, why we have different environments. Yeah, so Docker Compose override is like a naming convention. They have it read in general. So these two files are like the default files. And then you can have like the Docker Compose production and so on. In our case, we have staging and full stack testing.
Yep.
And I think some of it doesn't work so far. I don't know what exactly. So I was trying many things. So development and testing, and also how does it work if I have the production image? Is the production image enough for running the application? So I didn't test that before. I think this should work. Oh, and yeah, so there is also Sidekick. Sidekick is also not really necessary. And I can see that Sidekick, oh no, here's Sidekick. Okay, so fair enough. So staging is just doing everything but with Sidekick. And here we have front end, back end, the database, the Postgres database, and Redis.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is missing? I don't quite see what is missing. Backend will be started in full stack environment. I guess the front end will be in full stack environment too. Oh no, it has the production image. Right, so it doesn't have Ember. The command Ember. Have a look into the Docker file here. If you run the production stage, then it does not have port base. Aha, here we go.
What?
So that wasn't working.
You
Here,
found something.
we are still on the Docker file from Node Alpine. So this is the state after I discovered that it's working, but you cannot run tests in the Docker environment. So that's what's missing. You could add, instead of doing this here, have you used multi-stage builds before, Omar?
No, never.
Are you interested in this Docker thing after all?
Yes, it sounds interesting.
If you are, then I mean, there's so much to learn about it. Like
okay,
all the patterns, all the best practices, all the Gs and so on, so on.
Mm-hmm.
Solutions to it.
Yeah.
But the style I usually have. Oh, going very slowly. Can you still hear me, Omar?
Yeah, I can.
I'm gonna stop.
I think the sound is circulating a little bit.
Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop some applications that are currently consuming memory. I'm almost freezing for a moment. So you can learn a lot from Docker. RFM is actually a perfect use case. And the way I do it is usually I have a select. I regard these Docker Compose files as a collection of configurations, and also the specification what services need to be run. And I make use of multi-stage builds. So depending on what we want to use it for, we have either the test Docker image or the production image. So for development, what you could do is you could basically this is tricky. So you have to put in Ember Denlin somewhere, but I don't know where exactly, because we want to expose these ports and all of that on both. So maybe there will be some duplication. But that's not so bad.
No.
So I guess,
as long as the main functionality is retained, I think it's all right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Docker Compose has finished. Oh no, that's Ember Server. Oops. Docker Compose did not finish because the computers are still running.
Mm.
So front is going to be started. Backend seems to be running. Front end is going to build. So now I'm like in the Docker build a test staging. No, sorry, the build stage, build and test. So you can see that backend is going fine. Yeah, there's no data.
Yes.
Okay, so we have to do this manually. By the way, if you find any way how to do this kind of things, like the problem is that we cannot run the migrations in the Docker image, is that there is no database that's going to be run. The migrations are in the backend part.
Yeah.
The definitions of the migrations, but the database has to be up and running in order to execute them. So we always have to make it afterwards, which is a little bit annoying. So we have to do it like this: Docker compose exec backend, and then bin Rails or just Rails db pop db create db migrate, like that.
All right.
It doesn't have Rails on the path. Okay, so apparently you have to specify in /Rails. So now it works because the database is already up and running. This would not be the case if we would execute, if we would put db migrate in the Docker image. Then there would be no database to connect with, right?
That sounds strange.
No, it's not sounding strange. It's like a general problem. You can see it here. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, like, I would expect the database to be part of, or the backend to have a connection to the database.
yeah, but the backend, the database is another container.
Yes.
You cannot say Docker build and then like as soon as there are two containers involved, then you cannot put it into Docker file anymore. Like the Docker file is, if you run Docker build, like this is the Docker file for the front end, and it will be only the front end, nothing else, no dependency, no nothing.
Yep.
But it cannot expect, it cannot assume that there's a database running, right? As soon as there are more than one container involved, then you need to use Docker Compose. So there's front end, back end, DB, and Redis. These are 4 containers that you need in order to run it for development.
Yep.
And you have to wait until the database is accepting connections before you can run migrations.
Right.
That's the problem. What you could do is, I've seen this before. You can say command and then wait on, right? So there's, for example, for npm, there's a package that's waiting for something to be available, and you can write in, for example, db and then port TCP. I don't know what's the default port of Postgres database.
But what about those depends on commands?
Depends on command means only that it's
that like that they are up and running and then you run.
Yes. So here you can also see that the backend will be started after the DB has started. So you can see it's first starting the DB in the Redis, and once they are up and running, the backend is going to start. And by the way, this doesn't mean that up and running doesn't mean the port is available. That's like what we are waiting on. It just means that the container has started, right? So Docker does know nothing about which port must be available before it accepts connections.
Okay.
And that's why we always have to run these commands here. So now I'm on this branch, and I want to show you what I was talking about all the time. I said, if you run the tests now, then this is not going to work. So I'm going to say Docker compose exec front end,
yeah,
and then Ember test, right? So this should actually execute the tests on the command line, and that's it. But what we are going to see is that there's a dependency missing. Okay, run test, fair enough. And it will crash because it's not having the Chrome executable. It's on Node Alpine and not Danlin Ember.js.
All right.
Does it make all sense now to you, Omar? There we go.
Sort of.
Launcher Chrome not found, not installed. Yeah, absolutely. So Docker is a tricky thing, and you have to get many things right. And it has, like, it is logic in some way, but there's just too many things that you're not aware of when you start. And one of it is that I wasn't aware that we need Chrome enabled to be able to run the Ember testing. But I mean, the app itself is running. So here's the backend.
Yes.
And here's the front end. Right?
Yeah, I had those running all fine without any problems, but it's like it just didn't. I couldn't do any proper development work. So
in order to be able to really develop with it, you have to meet those volumes. So if I go to override, then I would expect. Yeah, so volumes are here. So whenever you change something in front end on your home system, it will be synchronized with the container, with the file system on the container, except for the folders temp and node modules. This is like except.
All right.
Because it's a subfolder and they are stored elsewhere. This one is merged. Everything else is synchronized with your home system. Same thing here in backend. And there we have the bundle as a separate folder. And everything else, including the application files, are synchronized with your home system.
Okay, that looks good. I think that's a clear improvement.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can go further if you want. You can try to install. Are you kind of tired, or what's up?
I'm a little bit tired, yes.
Yeah, it's fine. It's already 1 hour, but I explained to you basically the concepts of the Docker best practice and Docker strategies that I discovered while developing with it. I hope that they help you trying to Docker your way.
Yeah, I'm sure those things will help.
It is an absolute skill. I definitely advise or suggest everyone to learn Docker. It's a whole new world. It's solving a lot of problems. It's introducing some more problems, but most of the time it's solving problems.
Let's hope so.
It can help. It's especially helpful for the open source community because it can. It's making the start much easier for new people. Right? For example, for you.
Yeah. Yes. I agree that it's quite a good tool, but sometimes it's so tricky.
Yeah, I know. Do you have a powerful machine like fast read I/O operations? Like an SSD drive?
Fairly good.
Then you will have no problems. If you are on a serial disk, then the feedback loops are so long. That sucks.
Yeah, I have an SSD disk.
Yeah, that's good. That will provide fast I/O execution. Good. Then I would say this would be a good moment to stop the broadcast and finish this meeting. No?
Yeah.
All right, Omar. If you have any more questions, I think most of all of your questions are resolved up to now. Is that true?
Yeah, I think you've done a good job of explaining the things.
If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us in the Slack as you did before. Ask for pairing. We will be available. There's Daniel, there's Matt. They can all help you out with the project.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Nice. So I'll say goodbye.
Bye, and thanks.
You're welcome.